for the Minnesota Vikings this season? J.J. McCarthy or Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I don't think you can rule out having both of them there, and I don't think that's a bad situation, depending on how the dynamic unfolds, because nobody knows what J.J. McCarthy is at this point, and nobody knows what J.J. McCarthy is going to be coming off of the injury, so you've got that unknown as well. If you could bring in Aaron Rodgers and have him there to compete with J.J. McCarthy with that understanding, which is probably a big ask for what Aaron Rodgers wants in the world, then I think it could be a really good situation. If Aaron Rodgers would be willing to come in and actually act as a mentor and act as someone that can help J.J. McCarthy move forward, that could be a really good situation as well. Now, Aaron hasn't shown the ability to do that. It's hard to say that he will go in and be willing to do that. But at this point, after the Jets experience, for him to go on that Brett Favre sort of timeline, where Brett, after he left us in New York, went to the NFC Championship in Minnesota, it could be a really positive thing for him. Being a dome with a talented team gives him a chance to end his career potentially on a high note.
I think the only way Rodgers would mentor JJ is like, you're behind me, I'm the starter, watch me, and then I'll help, like with Zach Wilson. But I don't see, like, if I was looking for a mentor or a veteran to compete with JJ, I'd rather bring in Russell Wilson, because I think Wilson would be fine, and he's obviously not the stature of Rodgers. You could bench Wilson if it wasn't going well. You bench, I mean, you'd have to cut Rodgers, I think. I can't imagine he would be benched. And I actually get that with how great of a player he's been. I'll say this, I think if theoretically their ceiling is higher with Rodgers this year than JJ, I think you feel like you're going to compete for the Super Bowl if you get Rodgers. But you guys know, like, where I'm at on Rodgers is I do not think, as good as the Vikings are, that they will win the Super Bowl with him or even get there. I think Rodgers has shown since he won his Super Bowl in 2011, he has not even been back. He's had, when he was at his best, when he was in his prime, with great weapons like Devontae Adams, great coaching like Matt LaFleur and Mike McCarthy, defenses weren't great, but still, even those years they went 13-3 is like late in his career, he couldn't get them past an NFC Championship game. I just don't. I think if he went there, I don't think they get to the Super Bowl. And so if that's the case, why would I bring him in? Let me just go with JJ.
Well, coming off, remember, he had back-to-back MVP seasons, and then he had the down year before he went to the Jets. So, I mean, those are pretty.
But even in those years, he couldn't deliver what you think he should have.
Which I get, but I'm sure Minnesota would sign up for Aaron Rodgers as MVP of the league and see whether or not they can get over the hump that Green Bay couldn't get over. He is a year removed from the injury, so that makes it, potentially more attractive.
I'm baffled by Minnesota being involved in this, especially now that we saw, again, sorry to pat myself on the back, especially when I'm in the host chair, but classic one by me about.
First of all, you're not sorry. Just be honest.
But during last week's Sports Media Ombudsman, when I was like, hey, can we get accurate contract details? And I threw Sam Darnold's $55 million guaranteed out there as an example of did he really get that? And we found out today, no, Sam Darnold's deal is a one-year, $37 million guaranteed deal with 2 team options. If that's all it was going to take to keep Darnold, and you're this unsure about JJ, then you could have just I would have been fine with that. Now that we know that the contract that Darnold signed, the team can move off him after one season, then I would. I think going to JJ is the right move because you spent a first-round pick on him. You liked him in the preseason. It was reported, it's the type of injury guys have. It's unfortunate it cost you a year, but it's not supposed to change the trajectory of you as a player, especially as a quarterback. But if you're that nervous about J.J. McCarthy, then just keep Darnold under those basically that same deal. They didn't want to do that. And so I don't know how many teams are going to willingly get in bed with Rodgers saying, like, it'll be different with us. I can change him.
Like, I said, actually, that this is great because I said this, months ago, that, like, it's in Kevin O'Connell you trust, that that this is going to be a well-run franchise if they actually give the person who you're paying to be the expert be the expert, that the owner, that the GM, that no one else, the owner's son isn't stepping in and saying, this is what I want. There is a reason why they pay Kevin O'Connell for his expertise. It's not just a coach. It's for his actual knowledge and guidance. And it's saying the decision is yours. You're the one. You're the head coach. You're the offensive guru. You're the quarterback guru. You see the team. We built this team. Which quarterback gives us the best, the best chance at winning? What do you see? What are your conclusions that you're drawing? And I think it's great that the Vikings are doing that. And for the most part, I think it's been pretty great that in terms of like the internal reports have been pretty straightforward. They haven't been inflammatory. They haven't been contradictory. They haven't been kind of, conflicting in the way where you're kind of like, there's some drama going on in Minnesota or this or that. Like, you're not hearing any of that, which shows that this is, a tight-lipped operation, which is great. But the Minnesota, whether they're going to actually get Aaron or not is irrelevant. Like, it's the fact that they clearly are interested. And they clearly have reservations about jumping in with JJ McCarthy. That's just a fact. They would have never offered Sam Darnold that money that they did. They obviously weren't necessarily 100% interested in Sam or getting locked up into the future, but they were still trying to create a situation where they want him for next year because they believe that gives them the best chance to win. But also, if by chance those final 2 games were more of a repeat of what they saw again, they could move on and jump to JJ. But also, if he continues to ball and is playing good and they're like, no, Sam Darnold is our quarterback, let's go, they can continue to run with that. That's what they were trying to create, which means they are 1000% not ready to just jump in with JJ. Again, it's just a fact. It really is. It's just a fact. And especially when you have the roster that you have right now, it is a true win now roster. And throwing in a 22-year-old who hasn't now played football in literal months. And also the whole thing with him losing all that weight is actually quite frankly bizarre. As someone who's had that injury 3 times, you are going to have some atrophy in your knee without a shadow of a doubt, and around the quad and the hamstring and all of that type of stuff. But for him to apparently just really drop down in weight significantly, I can't even fathom that, quite frankly. It's really hard to understand how you would drop that much weight. Like, that is pretty bizarre. You're going to have some atrophy around the knee, but everything else should be intact. He should have been able to still, at least just maintain the amount of calories that he's eating. That should then have maintained, which means he was under eating, which means he was really down and out, which means it was obviously a very painful surgery for him, which sometimes it can be for meniscus injuries. There was also clearly issues because they went back in. People still keep pushing back on that narrative. It wasn't a second procedure. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And under no true circumstance is it routine to do a cleanup surgery after only a few months of getting a routine meniscus surgery. It's just not how it's done. It's not. So there has been nothing actual routine about all of the stuff that's happened with JJ, which has also reportedly concerned the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I don't think there'll be any true long-term issues with JJ. Do I think that he can have the risk of, arthritis and all this type of stuff? Absolutely. But like I said before, he's pretty much guaranteed to have that because he's an NFL quarterback. So that, for him being healthy and having great knees in his 50s and 60s, that ship is already long gone just from him playing in college and high school practically. But in terms of like, will this actually be like career jeopardizing? I don't believe so, unless there's real issues that are also being under discussed. But someone who got that surgery at 21 years old should have been able to do surgery. He should have healed like literally in a second, bounce back. He should have lost no weight. He should have had routine atrophy around his quad and his hamstring and etc. And then that should have even bounced back literally within, once you're actually doing physical therapy. I mean, that should have been bounced back. I mean, no exaggeration, within a couple months. I mean, it's just, he was 21 years old in the prime. His body is surging with hormones to build muscle and grow. He's literally still going through puberty. His body is set to just grow and heal and recover. When you're younger, your ability to recover is through the roof. And so the sheer fact that there was any type of complications is kind of like, that's weird. To put this in context, if you break a bone when you're like, and this actually happened to Daniel Jones, when you're like, 20, 21, 22, it's like the bone fuses together within like 3 weeks. If you're like an actual adult male, it could take 8 to 12 to, and beyond weeks. It's like, it's just night and day recovering. So there obviously are legitimate concerns. And so now they don't want to throw in a 22-year-old who still hasn't even officially fully recovered, had some issues. They have a win now roster, and now they're going to want to go through growing pains with essentially a 22-year-old rookie quarterback who has never played in the NFL and has now taken more time off of football than he ever has in his entire life. That is a legitimate risk. That is a true legitimate risk for a team that clearly is more than capable of winning 14 games, getting to the playoffs, and can obviously do damage. Obviously. So there are real stakes involved here. Aaron Rodgers is obviously also a gamble, but depending on how much money he wants, and I haven't really heard any reliable sources sourcing for like what he actually wants financially. I can't imagine it being a ton, quite frankly, because obviously the Vikings also hold way more power here, but the sheer fact that they were willing to pay Sam Darnold $37 million is pretty remarkable. But Aaron Rodgers, you can bench him. You're in control. They're like, oh, you can't bench Aaron Rodgers. Yes, you can. You can do whatever you want. That's the way this goes. So I think if you can get Aaron on a good deal, you bring him in, you have him start, and he either is Aaron and he's doing great with this team, or he's not, and you're like, nah, you know what? This didn't work. It was worth the experiment. It was worth the try. Even JJ now got exposed to Aaron, got to see what it was like for the first 4 games, 5 games, whatever it is. You bring in JJ, and there you go. Or if you really want, depending on how much of the season goes, if it was really a disaster and they start like 0-5 or something, which I don't think they would, but let's just say they do, then you still potentially actually just sit JJ for this whole other year, potentially, or maybe have him play the final 3 games or something, final 4 games, get a great draft pick, and, keep on keeping on, right? Like, you just kind of just keep moving forward in that regard. Like, there's all different variations of what you can do here, but you back yourself more in a corner if you're just like, no, JJ is our quarterback. We're really banking on him being great from the jump and minimizing any of the ups and downs that a first-year quarterback goes through. We're just hoping that he's just going to hit the ground running after not even playing football for essentially an entire year, something that he hasn't done since, the dude was 3. It's some, lot to think about. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Who do you think the better option is this year? Aaron Rodgers or JJ McCarthy? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.